Hey, it's Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is the final update on Marvel Zombies. I apologize for the late launch for this thing. You have 10 hours to go in the campaign. Unfortunately, I've been out of town, I was on vacation, then my computer broke, and I don't have time to fiddle around and fix things the way I normally would, so I had to get it repaired. This is a longer story than I already meant to get into. Let's go ahead and get started on the campaign. Short version, in case you missed it already, is tons of content available for this. This is the last and final update I'll be doing on the Marvel Zombies campaign. It may not be the last video I do on Marvel Zombies, but the last one I do on the campaign. This is the last day, we have 10 hours to go, and they've unlocked a whole bunch of stuff, both in terms of stretch goals, daily unlocks, as well as optional buys. Tons of optional buys. The all-in on this campaign is going to jump towards, well, $700-ish, but possibly even over $1,000 once you factor in shipping or VAT or anything else, although there's plenty of entry points along the way. The cheapest relative term, cheapest one being the original $130 pledge, as well as, you know, going up from there to gameplay pledges, gameplay this, gameplay that. We'll go into all of that. I want to go through the expansions first. I want to show you everything that's been unlocked until now. Timestamps as usual and discuss in the little thing down below. But general idea, in case you missed it, is first of all, there's gameplay over on Quacklope. There's 14 different why you shouldn't back Marvel Zombies videos out there. I have a should you back it, should you not video covering the early days of the campaign. This is covering a little bit of a follow-up to everything that's been unlocked so far, because a lot has changed since day one. As usual with CMON games, I usually do put a second video out towards the end of the campaign. This one's just a day or two later than usual. But past that, general overview of the game, in case you don't want to see all that content, all the other stuff around the game, is Marvel Zombies is CMON's newest entry into the Zombicide franchise. It's taking the Marvel IP, it's slapping it onto Zombicide, the game system, with a lot more changes than they typically do. To begin with, we have two different core boxes. We have a core box for playing as heroes, we have a core box for playing as the zombies. Past that, they have a lot of other changes. I will not be going heavily into that right now, but the main thing you need to know is this is Zombicide with a Marvel IP. If you don't like Zombicide, this most likely won't change your mind. It might, but I wouldn't want to spend a few $100s to find out. And if you like Zombicide and you like Marvel, this is most likely going to be a win for you. How much of a win? Well, that's a different conversation as well, and whether it's worth a few $100s to add that to your Zombicide collection, these are all part of the conversation. And to help with that, once we go through all the expansions, I do have 5 separate pledge recommendations as far as what I think is or isn't right for you, depending on who you are, what your goals are, what your priorities, all of that. But to start with, let's go through those stretch goals very quickly, because the campaign, we're closing down, like I said, right in the last 10 hours. We currently have, as of right now, we have 77, well, a little more complicated. We have 75 unlocks between the stretch goals and the daily reveals we have so far. We're guaranteed for that number to hit 77 because there's 2 more daily reveals before the campaign ends. And then we're likely going to hit at least 80 total characters before the campaign ends, just assuming we get even 3 more, which I think is very likely. These are not guarantees, but that number is going to be between 77 and 85 as the number of characters, and that's not counting anything extra you get when you buy the separate expansions. As far as the characters themselves, they're giving you more gameplay content than you've ever seen in any CMON game until now, because of the fact that all the content you get is doubled, assuming you get both systems. If you only get one core box, then well, it's only 80 characters. If you're getting both core boxes so that you can play it both as the heroes and as the zombies, then you're effectively getting twice the content with every single character. Zombie Beast that you're seeing on the screen over here, Zombie Beast is really giving you twice the gameplay content. You can play him as an actual, zombie when you're playing as the zombies and eat whatever, whoever you want, or alternatively, you can be playing as a regular hero and fighting against Zombie Beast instead. Every one of these 80 characters, from the heroes, from the zombies, from the bystanders, they're all giving you twice the gameplay content you typically would see. In the past, we had things like, oh, we unlocked an abomination, oh, we unlocked a survivor. Well, now when you unlock someone, it's both. Well, unless it's a bystander, that's a separate thing entirely, but even the bystanders are still giving you twice the gameplay content. And so if you're someone who plans on getting both of the core sets, whether you get both in the Kickstarter or at retail, then understand that you are getting twice the content. And at 80 plus characters, I believe that puts it at the highest that we've ever seen a CMON game. I'm sure we'll have plenty of people who are saying, but not in proportion to the amount of money raised. Sure, but we do have the most possible raised, especially considering the initial buzz around the campaign and all the frustration around the stretch goals. This isn't a surprise, and in fact, even the last few days when we saw those gaps stretching out to 200k gaps, I saw people who were frustrated, oh, we're opening back up to 200k gaps, this isn't what's supposed to happen. it is what's supposed to happen. This is the way the CMON campaigns work. This is the way we specifically pace, they pace things out as far as making sure that you have plenty of characters coming every single day, as far as keeping the excitement going, as opposed to having it all drying up, or alternatively giving you 200 characters, which I know we both want, but we're not, practically speaking, going to get. It's not to say there haven't been changes. There have been a few things that they have made changes to that drift away from their plans, unlocks or additions that they've added. We'll talk about those when we go through the various expansions, which now is a good time to go through all the optional buys you can get your hands on, which I will start doing now, starting with my least favorite and going up to my favorite. If I were buying these, or which ones I'll buy, and I'll tell you what I'm doing at the end. But any of these things over here, I'm going to be going through these in what I am least likely to get to most likely to get, starting with the tile set, which is basically a $30 optional buy, Kickstarter exclusive. So if you want this as Kickstarter only or the second-hand market, this is going to give you a doubled up tile set for the game. I'm not going to get this because I know for myself from past campaigns that I never use duplicate tile sets when they are given. I just, practically speaking, don't. I already don't go through all the content as much as I would like to. I'm already not going to play every single scenario, every single combination. I don't need an extra set of tiles to go ahead and put them out in different configurations, and it's one more thing to store. Now, that logic will likely be true when it comes to all the various characters I will want to get my hands on. The difference is the characters aren't duplicates. These tiles are duplicates in case I want to pair things up in more interesting ways, and so for me, I'm just not going to get the tile set, and that's even easier because this is not part of any of the main pledges CMON is offering, so I'm simply not getting the tile set. From there we have the extra dice. The extra dice for $10. This is one that I likely will get, but I have to take a look and think about it. In past month CMON campaigns, I have enjoyed some of their extra sets of dice, and other times I haven't. In particular, with something like Cthulhu Lets Me Die, that is one of the games where I absolutely want the extra dice set. Usually when the dice are more custom, I do want them, but in CMON, in Zombicide systems, I find that the 1 to 6 is totally fine. I don't need the bite marks on the dice. It doesn't really do anything for me, and so I'm less likely to get the extra dice. Not completely ruling it out, but I found that generally just having regular dice is not a big deal at all for me, and so this one I'm kind of on the fence about, but I mean, we'll see. We'll find out. Next up, we have the plastic tokens. This is one that I'm likely going to get. The $30 for the plastic tokens is not part of any of the full optional buys, but $30, not part of the full pledges over here for the game. But at $30 for a plastic token set, giving you a plastic copy of every token in the game. Not all CMON campaigns have given me a plastic token set I like. Once in a while, there have been those that I haven't liked quite as much, but I would say for the most part, I do think the plastic tokens add a good deal of extra heft to the tiles you're handling. I like them more than the basic punch board pieces that they have, and so while I do not think these are essential, not by a long shot, and they really aren't. CMON punch board is fairly thick. You're replacing a fairly thick punch board with these plastic tokens. You're not getting that much extra heft, but you are getting a little extra longevity, especially if it's a game you play a lot. You're going to resist having all the wear on the tiles if it's plastic. So I would say that the plastic tokens are something I would recommend for the game if you're going to play it a lot. And if you're not going to play it a lot, I think you're totally fine with the plain punch board for the game. From there we have Galactus the Devourer, and by no means should you be getting this at all. I'm probably going to get it, but to be very clear, I'm only able to even remotely justify to myself that I'm getting this because of the fact that I do videos and I can say, oh, I'll do an unboxing and I'll have content and all these things, and I need to be able to review this expansion too, and so I'm lying to myself or giving myself excuses and reasons as to why I should get this. I do not think anyone should really realistically be getting the Galactus the Devourer expansion. I think it's insane. It's $170 to get this. $170. That's if you get it as, part of the other pledge levels where you can get the $10 discount. $170 for, yes, gameplay content. There will be gameplay content. The expansion is Kickstarter exclusive. It will hold its value. And that, by the way, that's true for almost everything we're going to talk about today. Almost everything will hold its value, but that only has any real meaning if you turn around and sell it if it's not for you. If you're keeping it on your shelf, then you have to factor in not whether it holds its value, but whether it's worth that value to you. And so $170 for something that's going to sit on my shelf, I mean, again, I can justify it. I could put it in the back of a video and say, look at that, it's scenery, yeah, exactly. But for the most part, this is something you're not going to table a lot. How often are you going to pull it off your shelf, put it on the table, and go through the, oh, we're eating the world and all that? It's just, I mean, people will do it. Don't get me wrong. We have, 20,000 backers in this campaign? Where are we up to right now? 24,000 backers in this campaign. People absolutely will do it. but I imagine it's 1%, maybe 5%, maybe some, like, it's not going to be most people that are regularly making this hit their table, and it is an expensive price tag to get it. I'm right there with you as far as wanting it, but I think it doesn't make sense to get this game at all. Not the game, to get Galactus the Devourer at all. And so this it rates above the other three, but it's definitely the lowest as far as anything else. Next up from there, we have the Artist Special Edition set. This is going to be giving you 6 new characters. It's Kickstarter exclusive, but it's giving you more gameplay characters for the game. $25, it is exclusive, so if you want to get it, it's either now the second-hand market or potentially on a future Kickstarter if they have one, but there's certainly no guarantee of that. Or you can get these over here. Now, if you want any of those particular characters, sure, and that logic's going to hold true for every single expansion we talk about today. If you want specific characters and you're willing to get that one because you have a personal soft spot for Gambit or whoever, Gambit's a stretch goal, you don't have to worry about that, but whatever it is, then yeah, those are factors to consider for yourself. For myself, I'm not going to everly go into... I'm not going to, give a little disclaimer on every single one, but if you particularly like Old Man Logan, then you should get this one. You have to factor those into your decision. But over here, we have 6 characters for $25. The reason I have this one lower than anything else is because there are so many characters in this campaign, and if you're anything, unless you're the most diehard of Zombicide diehards, you're likely never going to go through all those characters to begin with. And so this one, particularly over here, gives you an opportunity to spend an additional $25 to get 6 more characters when you're already not likely going to be going through all your characters, so this likely falls into that completionist category. Again, unless you like that Old Man Logan or a specific character, it likely falls into the general completionist category, but for the most part, it's more characters for a game that is overloaded with tons and tons of characters for you to play through as it is. But it is Kickstarter exclusive, so it's not going to be making its way to retail. From there, we have Fantastic Four Under Siege. Also, good time to point out that any of these may not make their way into retail. In general, CMON has labeled which ones are Kickstarter exclusive and which ones are not. But if you look at Marvel United, you will see that not all expansions from a CMON campaign do make their way into retail, despite them intending for it to be so. And so that's not a guarantee. I don't want to push on the FOMO. I don't want to say get this, get that because of that. Most of these things likely will make their way to retail unless they are tagged as Kickstarter exclusive, but it's also not a guarantee. So just factor that in as you make decisions. But moving on from there, we have Fantastic Four Under Siege, and this one's lower on my list from some of the others, just because I don't have a particular affinity for the Fantastic Four, and this one adds some scenarios, but doesn't add any major shifts to the gameplay. The scenarios have a specific tweak to them as far as moving up through the floors and dealing with taking out whatever, but it doesn't have a huge level of additional gameplay so much as scenarios, shifts or adjustments to the game. It adds new characters, it adds new cards, it adds new tiles. It's going to be $50 on a $60 MSRP, but if you get it on the Kickstarter, you're getting the 4 exclusive characters, and that's a big deal for all these expansions that are not Kickstarter exclusive, which is they all on their own are not the best price point. You're paying more than you should, arguably, because $50 on a $60 MSRP means it's going to be like $42 or $43 in retail, and you're also paying extra shipping to get your hands on it now. But you will be getting extra characters, so see what I saw already. These characters will hold their value, I'm not worried about that, meaning getting this game with the characters and then turning around and selling those characters to pay for the game, all those are conversations. But if you're just judging it purely based on what makes the most sense for you, ultimately you're looking at paying around $15, $20 to get those 4 extra characters. Is it worth it? Is it not? That is a question you'll have to go through for all of those, depending on the characters, depending on how much you can actually play the game, depending on how much you a completionist you are, and we'll get to those pledge levels after. Next up, we have Hydra Resurrection. Hydra Resurrection is giving us the first of the red bosses, although I'm ranking this in order of my favorite to least favorite to favorite, and so technically it was the second of the red bosses. And this also represents one of the changes that CMON has made as far as listening to backers and making adjustments, which is so many people wanted playable versions of Thanos and Red Skull, that even though they are red boss characters, they now have their own hero and abomination cards as well that are being added to the respective games. So that's more gameplay content if you are getting your hands on those games. If that was the thing you were holding out for, if that was the thing you were waiting on, they have been added to both those respective expansions, and so you'll be getting your hands on that. But then again, $50 on a $60 MSRP, giving you tiles, giving you scenarios. In this case, in the Marvel Zombies Hydra Resurrection box, the reason this one's over here is because you're also getting the shooters. In fact, now that I think about it, I should actually move it higher up, strictly speaking. But you're getting the shooters as well, so you're going to be getting 14 sculpts that are shooting zombies. So if you want zombies that shoot at you on the way and give you an additional zombie mechanic, zombie gameplay, then this will be giving you that. Additionally, it's giving you extra scenarios, it's giving extra tiles, and it's giving you Kickstarter exclusive characters as well. The expansion itself is not Kickstarter exclusive, but the 4 extra characters will be. Next up, we have the Guardians of the Galaxy set. $40 and a $50 MSRP, and that's because that difference in price point is because you're not getting tiles in this one. There's no extra tiles, there's all extra gameplay mechanisms, there's going to be the extra characters, the extra exclusives, you can have Thanos as a boss to fight, Thanos you can now fight as or against as well. They're each giving you, both Hydra, both Red Skull and Thanos giving you their own unique set of action cards and the way they operate compared to traditional abominations. So slight gameplay adjustments, slight gameplay mechanics, more characters, more stuff for the game. That's going to be Guardians of the Galaxy. Next up from there, we have the Sentinel Strike. Now, this is going to be a Kickstarter exclusive expansion. If you want to get your hands on this expansion and nothing to do with extra characters, this is $40 and it's on Kickstarter, and otherwise you're not getting your hands on it. These operate effectively similar to almost a hybrid of bosses and abominations. They're going to be giving you an extra challenge, these various Sentinels, as well as extra characters over there with Professor X over there. But you're getting extra characters for the game, and extra mechanism as far as the way they operate, the way they try to get in the way, the way they're slowly going to add to the board, and you can move them, you can use them, utilize them in any mode you want, and it just gives you an extra, they have their own unique action deck in the way they operate, but again, it gives you a bit of an extra threat that you can add to any version of the game that you're playing. That's going to be the Kickstarter exclusive Sentinel Strike expansion. And then lastly, we have the Clash of the Sinister Six. Clash of the Sinister Six, $50 and a $60 MSRP, giving you a tile set, giving you scenarios, giving you characters, and giving you team versus team Zombicide. This is something that was requested a lot because of the fact that we had abominations fighting off against, we had zombies fighting off against heroes, and so people requested team versus team, and this is something that apparently was in the works. If you wanted competitive Zombicide, this is the expansion you'll need, although big caveats here, this is the expansion you'll need, but you're also going to want to get the both core sets. You will need both core sets to play this expansion, which effectively means that your price point comes in to play this game, to play it, not to get to play the expansion on its own, but to play the expansion as part of the team versus team mode. You effectively need to be spending the $240 plus $50, which means $290 before shipping, before VAT, in order to play Zombicide in competitive team versus team mode. Although, granted, you could get that second core set at retail and save, you know, $20, $30 on that price tag, so you could save a little bit, but basically looking around the $300 range if you want to play competitive Zombicide. So you have to decide if that's worth it, which is a good time to jump into the pledge levels. I'm going to start with what CMON brought to the table, and then I'm going to go into my recommendations depending on who you are. Obviously, take these purely as advice. You know, do what you want to do, buy what you want to buy, and if you're someone who wants to get it all, I know whatever I say is not going to matter either way. I know that feeling because I am that person. But starting off with $130, $130 is going to give you the core pledge. Now, the most important thing to note here is this core pledge is giving you all those 80 characters we talked about. Those are all coming with the core pledge. As soon as you buy that $130 core pledge, you're getting those 80 characters, which makes this the best bang for your buck, both in terms of gameplay for your dollar, as well as in terms of general aftermarket value. If you're turning around and selling this, that core pledge gives you the best ratio of spending money to money back in because of the fact that all 80 stretch goals are attached to that. Everything else has like, hey, here's a $50 buy, and 4 characters are attached to that as extras and exclusives. This one has 80 attached to that $130 purchase. From there, we have $240, which is going to give you the Resistance pledge. This is arguably the worst pledge value in terms of if you're getting a single pledge, because that Resistance pledge, that X-Men Resistance box, the second core box, you'll be able to get that at retail. Assuming it goes to retail, assuming we don't have any surprises, you'll be able to get that for less than the $110 gap, and that's before shipping on that second core box. So arguably the Resistance pledge is the worst value. If you want that, get the $130 pledge, and then get the exact X-Men Resistance at retail for cheaper. From there, we have the Galactus pledge, $410, which gives you both those core boxes plus Galactus. Again, not the best value because you're saving $10 on Galactus, but the flip side is you're paying an extra $20, $30 to get that X-Men Resistance box. It's still better to just get the core pledge plus Galactus and then still get X-Men Resistance at retail later. Again, still rolling the dice in terms of what makes it to retail, how easy it will be to find, so there are factors to consider, but the most likely conversation is that you're still spending a bit more than you need to get that pledge level. From there, we go to the Hungry Pledge, and the Hungry Pledge is likely a pledge that's right for a lot of people. At $430, this gives you a $40 discount on a bunch of other expansions. So if you wanted most of those expansions and you wanted to save a little bit, the Hungry Pledge will let you do that without going completely over the top, because you won't be getting Galactus. Like we said already, Galactus is completely unnecessary, and you will be saving $40 and all of that. But you're going to be missing out on Galactus, as well as any of the, basically those first 5 expansions. You're going to be missing out on the tile set, the dice, the plastic tokens, the Galactus, Galactus, and then the Artist Special Edition set. But it's basically, so it's not a gameplay all-in, it's a gameplay mostly all-in. It's trying to give you as conservative a price as possible. I recognize the irony of that statement, even while I'm looking at the $430 price tag, but it's trying to give you as conservative a price tag as possible while giving you as much of the gameplay content as possible. And at this point, that extra $20, $30 you're paying for the X-Men Resistance, that's washed out by the fact that you're getting a $40 discount on the full bundle value, so it's still arguably worth it, assuming you want to pay that much for all that content. And it gives you all these nice little extras as part of, well, getting those extras. And then from there we have the $615 Devourer pledge. This is giving you a $50 discount, and that's an actual $50, meaning they already incorporated the Galactus Devourer $10 discount that you're getting, and they give you an additional $50 to get everything here. This is going to be giving you everything except for the dice, the tile set, and the plastic tokens. Basically, it's this pledge, it's the Hungry pledge, plus Galactus, plus the Artist set, as far as giving you basically a gameplay all-in for everything. There's no further all-in, because that would push it to a $700 price tag, which I imagine CMON wants to avoid having that price tag. They want you to get the stuff, but they want to avoid the actual price tag on the table. These are CMON's pledge levels. For myself, I have 5 different pledge levels. 5 different pledge levels that I think are relative or worth it, depending on who you are. The first one is the Minimalist. The Minimalist is the cheapest pledge level possible, and it involves picking up Marvel Zombies at retail for $80 to $90 when it goes on sale on Amazon at some point in the future, and it will. If you want to dip your feet into the waters of this game, and you don't want to spend $130, and keep in mind that $130 is really $160, $170 by the time you're done with shipping, VAT, whatever else you're getting on the table, even that basic core pledge is not going to be cheaper than $150. You can get the retail game for $80, for $90, if you're willing to wait, if you're willing to be patient. You will get less content, so you have to factor that in, but if your goal is to find out if this game is for you and jump in then waiting around and getting that pledge level at retail and not getting a single thing in the Kickstarter is the best option for you. The next one is the I Want to Be Efficient, or some name like that. And that's going to be the pledge level that's already offered over here, that $130 pledge level. If your goal is gameplay bang for your buck, if your goal is getting all these extras, a ton of extra heroes and abominations, and more content than you'll ever really need, get the basic Undead pledge with all that content, and you can turn around and pick up X-Men Resistance at retail if you want to. If you like the core engine, the core system enough, go ahead and get that. Otherwise, turn around and sell what you got, because this will be the easiest one to offload for what you paid for it or more. You go turn. When this thing arrives, if you turn around and say, hey, I have an Undead pledge for $130, that thing will be gone in a day. Guaranteed. It'll be gone in a day. Obviously, the guarantee is not obviously, but the guarantee is US based. It's not international, and it's not actually a guarantee, but I'd put money on it. Next up from there, we have a tricky one. The tricky one over here is going to be the I don't like cooperative games, but I want to get this game because it now has competitive mode. That's going to be the pledge level that comes with the Clash of the Sinister Six, and that pledge level is going to be getting nothing at all. It's not tongue-in-cheek, genuinely. If the only reason you are willing to consider getting this game is because it finally has competitive mode, then understand that you have to pay $300. $240 plus $50 plus shipping. You have to pay a minimum of $300 in order to actually play this game in a competitive mode. If you don't like Zombicide, and this is the thing that's pushing you over the fence because you can now play it competitively for an untested, unvetted, a system that is well loved by many, but it's well loved by many as a cooperative engine, you're basically putting down $300 on the hopes that this competitive mode is somehow suddenly worth it, compared and contrasted with any other game system out there that is well loved and well vetted. Don't get me wrong, I am excited about the competitive mode. I plan on diving into the competitive mode. I plan on seeing it. My expectation is that I'll prefer this game as a cooperative mode. Zombicide is a beer and pretzels game with strategy, but also with enough dice rolling, enough other things going on, that I think this thrives as a competitive experience, as a cooperative experience. I think a competitive experience is a fun twist, a fun little neat little gimmick to add onto the game, and something I will definitely try out. But I would not spend $300 to go from, hey, I don't like Zombicide, to now you got me with this competitive mode. I think it's going to be a less efficient way to play the game. I could be wrong. I hope I am. But it's a $300 experiment to find out if this is suddenly a game for you now that it has competitive. If the only reason you are considering backing this game is because it has the Clash of the Sinister Six expansion, I recommend you stay away completely. The fourth pledge level is not really a pledge level here, but it's kind of the I want it all. And that's going to be the person who basically gets the $615 minimum, and you might get the tile set and the dice and the this and that, whatever else you want. The I want it all basically comes down to the fact that you just want to get it all, and you're going to get what you want, and it is what it is, and I'm not going to convince you out of it. And even though the fact that you and I both know that Galactus is one of the worst ratios of gameplay to dollar ever out there, we're still just going to go ahead and say, you know what, we're going to let ourselves get this, and that's a different conversation entirely. I can't help you with that pledge level, but it is what it is. And the last pledge level is, I think, arguably a very reasonable one to consider, and it's this one. Just get the base game, $130 plus the Sentinel Strike expansion, an additional $40. The reason for that pledge level is as follows. That pledge level is going to get you $130 plus $40, $170 total. It's going to give you the Sentinel Strike expansion, which is the only Kickstarter exclusive expansion that isn't, well, we basically have 3 Kickstarter exclusive expansions. We have Sentinel Strike, we have Galactus, and then we have the Artist Special Edition set. Then we have some upgrades and tokens and all that. Those things, I think over there, the reason to get the Sentinels is because at $40, Sentinel is giving you a decent gameplay change, a decent gameplay pivot, and it is Kickstarter exclusive. As far as characters, if you want character variety in the game, you're going to have so much character variety anyway from the 80 additional characters you have in the game that you will never really have to worry about that. Plus the base game, obviously, plus whatever, you'll have more than enough content. And if you find it is a system you like, you will be able to pick up, almost certainly, not a guarantee, you will be able to pick up the other expansions bit by bit in retail once you have already established and vetted that this is a system that you're willing to more further invest into it. $170 is going to be a good gateway price to get into the system. You'll have, yeah, will you miss out on some characters? Absolutely. Are you going to miss out on Venom and Rhino and Green Goblin, Mysterio, more specifically those versions of the characters? Yes, you will. You will miss out on Kickstarter exclusive stuff. You'll miss out on the Silver Surfer. You'll miss out on all these characters from the Artist Special Edition set. You'll miss out on anything extra in any of these boxes over here. You'll be missing out on a grand total of somewhere in the range of 30 extra characters that you otherwise wouldn't get, but you will spend a lot less money, and you will spend it as you find that you like the game as opposed to upfront now all in advance. I want it all too. I'm probably getting it all. But if you're someone who wants to kind of get the things that are going to be harder to get later, and you want to lock those in and you don't mind missing out on some things, then that's going to be the best pledge level. And as a good reminder, assuming you're skipping Galactus, you're inherently missing out on some characters, no matter what, at that point. And so does it really matter if you're missing out on 1 character versus 6? Once you're not a completionist, who really cares if it's 1 or 6 or 30 when you already have 150 other characters to play with, because there's going to be more than enough content in this game. And that's everything. That's everything as far as Marvel Zombies. Everything here will hold its value, nothing to do with that, but the bigger question on the table with 24,000 backers, $7.5 million raised, likely going to be hitting $8.5 million by the time this campaign is done, hitting in that 8 to 10 million range. I was hoping to get closer to 10, but it looks like we'll be coasting at closer to $8.5 million. It's a lot of money to be spent on the newest system in the Zombicide universe, and the comments are filled with as many people who are disappointed at how expensive it is, as many people as there are disappointed that there's not more. There are comments from people who are already asking for Season 2, which even for myself, I'd like a bit of a breather on my wallet on this one before we head into Season 2. Give us 2 years, or 3, that would be 3 would be even better, or never. Never's fine too, because at the end of the day, this is still not going to be the last we see of a Zombicide system from CMON. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, have a good one.